Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Outpost. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we're going to talk about this movie. It's been a little while since I've just talked about a movie. I used to do this all the time, but I just haven't in a little while. But I was so compelled by some strange this thing that I saw. And Steve, I think the word you used was odd, and I think that's about the best way
Yeah.
I could say unusual, I could say wild and crazy, but I think odd is what I like for this. This movie is called City of Rott. And the way that, and I mean, you're looking at this thumbnail image right now, this title card here that I've got. I mean, that's what the movie looks like. It's animated, but it's not. I guess you call it a cartoon. It's animated for sure, but it's like I guess South Park is the best comparison I
Yeah.
can make, where it's these flat 2D images and they move around in a sort of stop motiony, or like as if you're moving the paper around on the page sort of thing, not like an animated cartoon.
Looking at the creator's IMDb, he worked on the South Park movie from the 90s, so he has
Yeah.
that pedigree.
Yeah. So I mean, he must know, how that stuff works, knows how to do it. And the other unique thing about this movie, the other unique, as if there's not like everything about this is kind of unique to me. It's a one man operation. It's this gentleman named Frank Sudol, I guess. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but Frank Sudol, one man operation, drew all this, made all this. He does all the voices in the movie. There's, I don't know, a half dozen or so unique characters with speaking parts, and this one guy does it all. He does drew everything, animated everything. I think he made all the music, he produced it, whatever goes into editing it and putting it together. And it had a DVD release in 2006. And what's funny is you and I both like I'm still a big, horror movie fan. I still consider myself a horror fan and watch a lot of horror movies. But say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even showing my age, I was a big, horror movie nerd. That was part of my identity. Was I was keeping up with horror and buying, Fangoria and Rue Morgue magazine and all that, keeping track of what was coming out on DVD. I don't remember this came out on DVD in I think 2006. There's a Dread Central review of it that goes back to 2006, and as a matter of fact, they give it a positive review. Uncle Creepy from Dread Central. That was, I mean, if you're a horror fan, you remember some of these websites and some of these names. They give it a 5 out of 5 back in 2006. I don't remember ever hearing about this or ever seeing the DVD, around or anything like this. Did you ever? Have you ever heard of this?
No,
Yeah, I
not at
certainly
all. Like
haven't.
I was actually like when you pulled this up at our Airbnb that we were hanging out at back in May with the rest of the Outpost Unknown crew. Um, we both you saw this and started watching it, and I checked
Yeah.
it out. It's like we were both kind of like mesmerized, and like
Yes.
we both kind of started looking into it, and I was shocked that it was 2006 because it was like, how did this like miss all of us? Because like
Right.
none of our friends seem to know that this thing existed.
Uh-uh.
It's yeah, I have no idea. This seems like something that should have been like a very large blip on our radar, and
Yeah.
it was not.
Yeah. So you mentioned Tubi. That's it was one of those. I love Tubi, and I hope Tubi never changes. I get the sense checking in from Tubi on Tubi from time to time that they might be getting a little too not sell out. That's not the word, but a little too corporate, a little too trying to ape Netflix's thing or something. I hope Tubi never changes, because right now on Tubi you can go and find crazy stuff like City of Rot, and it's on there and you can watch it. I wish Tubi had a category that was like, you go on Tubi and it's like browse, choose your categories, horror, action, anime, whatever. I wish they had a category that was just like weird baloney nonsense that you you know and then this might fit under that, because like it's not going to pop up on the front. I don't even know how I got to it on Tubi, frankly. I was hanging out in the house, I was on a Roku, and I go to the Tubi and I'm browsing around, and I think I got to it by clicking on adult animation, like I was going to pull up Family Guy or American Dad and just put something on in the background, but then this was on there under that category, I think is how I found it. Put it on and started watching it, and immediately you're struck by by what it looks like when you pull it up. And it just mesmerized me, and I was hooked. I had to watch the whole thing, and I probably could have let it go. I probably could have watched it and said, "Wow, that was weird." But then I saw there are a couple of sequels, so it's like a bona fide franchise. It's at least a trilogy,
In
if
a
not
video
more.
game.
There's a video game, and so, and then particularly I tease her, if we're so inclined and we do the follow up episodes on the sequels, they look even. I haven't watched the third sequel, but I put on the second sequel like immediately after watching this one, and it's looks completely different. It's still animated in a very unusual fashion. I'm just going to tease it, and you can. I mean, obviously, you can look ahead anytime you want, but once I saw that second movie, I was like, I got it. I have to talk to somebody about this. I got to work through these feelings that I'm
I've
having.
not watched part 2 yet, but I absolutely will. I'm
It's
on board for the full City of Rot franchise.
I can't wait for you to pop in part two and see what it looks like. So the gentleman, I guess I'll talk just a little bit about Frank Siddall before we talk about the movie itself, because he's got his own YouTube channel, of course, as we all do. It's called Black Arrow Cartoons, Blackarro, like you see here. And he's got, lots of not only City of Rot, but a couple other feature length animated films in sort of the same style or voice. Yeah, I mean, here's Steve, it's your wheelhouse. He's got like Transformers unboxings. I get the sense that this is a dude who he kind of knows what he likes to do. He does his own thing that's very unique to him. It's his own voice for sure. And whether anybody else is along for the ride or not, I think he feels happy if you are and doesn't care if you're not. Not like he's a surly, angsty type of guy at all, but like very clearly just doing his own thing. And if it hits you and it's something that you want to see, I'm sure he's pleased about that. And if not, he's happy to continue making City of Rot type of movies, probably for the rest of his days. So I'm interested in what this guy's all about. I'm not even going to stop at City of Rot. I'm going to watch this like here, like on the top of his YouTube page, he's got this Guest of Evil or Curse of Malnura. So he's got, I'm going to check out his other stuff, frankly. And it's all on Tubi, I think, from what I saw, because I saw other weird cartoons like adjacent to this. And then it turns out that they're his also. So anyway, it's a one-man show, one-man cartoon, feature-length animated film. It's about 77 minutes. The first City of Rot. It's on Tubi currently. Probably will be when you get a chance to get around to it. Steve, what happens? What happens in City of Rot?
So, zombie apocalypse.
Yep.
There are worms that have infected the entire world's water supply. So, you can't drink the water, you can't take baths. There are worms that will crawl into your brain and turn you into a zombie. It starts out with a big tittied nurse going into a mall, and she gets bitten by a zombie and then
Yeah.
runs away. And then we meet the person who is the actual like hero of the movie. His name is Fred. He is
Yeah.
an old man. He moves around on a walker, and the walker talks to him. And for a long time, I was like, "What the hell is going on with the?" Yeah, you
Yeah.
give it that 10. For a long time, I was like, "What the hell is going on with this walker?" And I'm glad they explained it later. But
Right.
his walker, there's like a voice in his head, and it's coming to him through his walker, and so he is talking to his walker. It talks back to him, and he is just going out into this zombie apocalypse trying to find a new pair of shoes.
Hmm.
It's like he is like this savant when it comes to killing zombies. Like anytime
Yeah.
zombies are near him, he just grabs his walker and annihilates the zombies. It's he's like pulling off Matrix moves, like spinning the walker around, like wrapping the walker around the zombie's neck and flipping the walker, which in turn rips the zombie's head off, and then reaching into the sky and catching the walker and pulling it down. And then he just shuffles away, trying to find the next shoe store in town. And so there's a lot of like interconnected stories in
Yeah.
this as well. So like the nurse runs into Fred, and she's like, help me find the cure for the zombies. and of course, like, immediately, like she immediately like turns within minutes of meeting Fred. We follow Fred for like about 40 minutes,
Yeah, it's
and
quite a while.
he meets a guy who like they hold him in like a donut shop or convenience store for a while. Uh, uh, and Fred, I mean, I don't know how to describe this. Like, there's another old man with a jar of prune juice,
Yeah.
and another group of random survivors are like the prune juice. That old man is protecting that jar of prune juice so hard that must be the zombie cure.
Mhm.
And so people are pursuing this man with the prune juice. How do I even describe this? There's it looks like a bunch of just randomness. Like, here's Fred doing
Yeah.
his own thing, here's the nurse doing her own thing, here's like two guys raiding a warehouse with a 3-year-old on top of the van with a fucking gun being a lookout. They're doing their own thing. There are people hunting the prune juice man.
Yeah.
And all of these stories end up converging. Fred, who is our main character, is like the common piece of all this. He kind of interacts with everyone. But the
Right.
interesting thing about Fred is 40 minutes into the movie, he dies. Like, the main character just dies, and
Right.
he figures out, well, shit, I'm infected with zombie worms, and he becomes a zombie. And now Zombie Fred goes through the rest of the movie interacting with these characters, and so
Hmm.
we find out that the nurse was the wife of the guys who were robbing the warehouse, and Boon Juice guy really actually did have the cure for the zombie virus in his jar of prune juice. And there's actually two types of worms in
Right.
this movie. Um, so there's the zombie worms that obviously turn you into zombies, and there's another worm that is just a parasite.
Right.
It gets into your brain, and it doesn't turn you into a zombie, but it starts controlling you.
Hmm.
And if you don't eat enough, it basically begins like um, aging you faster and talking to you.
Yeah.
And so Fred's Walker, like the voice that Fred hears coming from his Walker is actually coming from the parasite worms in his brain. There's a scene where he infects someone else with the worms, and the
Hmm.
next time you run into that guy, that man's hair is now turned gray, and
Yeah.
he is now talking to his sentient shotgun. Um, there's so many moving parts to this animated zombie movie that on its surface does not look like it's going to be like deep at all.
Uh huh.
Ultimately, like it ends with zombie Fred pursuing prune juice guy, who again actually did have the cure for the zombie
Right.
virus in his jar of prune juice. And the zombie cure is something called Zombifate, and there's like advertisements for it all over the city.
Uh huh.
And it's just these giant like hockey puck sized.
I was gonna ask you, what do you think those are? Because they look kind of like Tide Pods or dishwasher
Yeah,
pads.
I don't know. They are like large, giant
Uh
pills.
huh.
And this old man with the prune juice is just popping them like M&Ms. Only they're like the size of a hockey puck, so he's just like chomping them down. Um, it's just him and Zombie Fred, and he's telling Zombie Fred like, hey, the zombie worms only control 95% of your brain. You've still got the other 5%. You can fight it. I know you're still in there.
Use the 5% still left. Take a stand. Be a man. Fight the worms.
And Fred kind of comes back a little bit
Uh
and
huh.
starts like protecting Prune Juice Guy for a little bit. But then Prune Juice Guy has a heart attack, I guess, and dies. And Fred starts eating him. And every time he like takes a bite of Prune Juice Guy, who I assume his body is now like saturated with the zombie virus
Right.
cure.
Yeah.
You see Zombie Fred take a bite, and as Fred is chewing, like the zombie worms will get into his mouth and like push the chunk of meat out of his mouth. It's hilarious. But I guess Fred eats enough of the cure-infested old
Yeah.
man to kill the zombie worms, and then zombie Fred dies, and I'm assuming he probably just gets resurrected in future movies, but I don't actually know.
Yeah.
What a strange, strange film.
I think you would say that the movie kind of meander, even though it's only 77 minutes long, and that's including the credits and stuff. It does kind of meander, and I won't say waste some time, but it does kind of fill some time. But even so, like all of these things, this is by far not the I've seen sloppy movies before, and especially zombie movies. We used to watch tons of these zombie movies straight to video back in the day, and this thing, as far as zombie movies go, like the thing with the worms, the fact that there's a cure for it, all of that stuff, is pretty interesting to me. I think he's got a lot of kind of unique ideas, and all of these weird parts that come together. It all fits together pretty well, in my opinion. I don't want to overstate it and make you guys think that I'm watching Citizen Kane here, but this is actually I appreciated like the writing and the ideas that he had, and I think he kind of weaves it together pretty well. All the stuff that happens, and there's this weird. It's all drawn. It's hand drawn art, but I feel like it does convey a sense of place. I do feel like this is happening in some big city that's overrun by zombies. It comes across to me anyway that's really happening, and all this, there's this zombie fate stuff all over the background. So there's some, and you have to wonder like what's going on there, because the advertisements are sort of portraying that like, yeah, there's this zombie worm problem, but here's the way that we're going to handle it. You take this drug or whatever it is from some pharmaceutical company, but that apparently was not enough to curb the zombie outbreak. So there's this world building in the background with the zombie fate, and there's some brief scene of a truck with some like soldier looking guys machine gunning zombies, like, so there's some stuff going on in the background. So there's a world going on that you can kind of get a sense of, but then we spend most of our time with Fred, of course. I found this movie pretty interesting. I'm interested to. I watched the second one, but I might have been like day drinking at the time, so I don't remember everything that happened. But I do think they go into like, what is Zombie Fate? Who is behind Zombie Fate? What else is going on here? I think that it expands the universe here when we get into the sequels, and I don't have any idea what happens in the third sequel, but. I kind of like this movie. I think. Did you end up like? Would you say you liked it? It's a weird thing to say, because like if you show this to almost anyone, they're going to be like, "What are you talking about? This is ridiculous."
I liked it, but I don't know that I think it's good.
Yeah, I think that I have the same thought. Yeah,
it's probably not good.
Yeah,
it is interesting,
mm-hmm.
and it is incredibly impressive knowing that one person made it themselves and essentially did everything, all the voice work, all the music, all the animation, they created all the characters. I mean, is it good?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I mean, it's okay to like things that you don't think are. It's not bad by any means. It's just kind of like, if I was like looking at it like objectively, like if this was a movie that like was made by like an entire crew of people, I'd be like, yeah, this is fucking dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like knowing the background is doing a lot of heavy lifting for this movie.
Yeah.
But I still liked it. I want to see more. I think definitely the fact that one guy did all of this, like that's more of a point in favor of the movie than probably the movie itself.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. Like if this came out and like was like Disney Plus presents City of Rott, and you pulled it up and this was what it was, you'd be like, and their budget was $3 million or something, you'd be like, what? Or what is this? I can't believe that this is what you ended up with a whole crew of people and all that money. But when you hear that it's just like one guy and this is just something he had a passion to do and did it all himself, then it's like you said, it becomes pretty impressive. in that regard. So I like it. Any parting thoughts on City of Rot?
I think everyone should watch it.
Yeah.
It's like I can't tell you the story's gonna blow you away, but there's a lot of like interesting world building. Like I think
Hmm.
Fred is an interesting character. Uh, I think maybe for what it is, there's almost like too many moving parts to it. Like
Yeah.
like this movie really benefit from ultimately like, having all these characters connected? I don't know, but
Hmm.
I think definitely check it out. It's a cool movie. I can't say it's good, but just you should watch this and you should be impressed that one person did all this. And I think it definitely does enough to make you want to see what comes next.